it's Caitlyn Kramer, your 2019-2020 National All-American Miss. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video, it is going to be all about how to prepare for the introduction competition at your state pageant. If you haven't already, be sure to check out last week's video. It was all about how to prepare for interview, and a lot of you guys gave me great feedback. So if you are new to the channel or haven't watched that video, be sure to go check it out. So like I said, today is all about introduction. I've gotten lots of questions about it, and I really feel like this video is going to address a lot of those questions. So as always, I have my laptop, I have my notes, and we're gonna get right into the video. So the very first thing that I'm actually going to talk about is how to write a successful introduction. Writing an intro is super important, and it is the key to success. You want to set yourself up for a really good score. So this are kind of the tips that I have that you can do to do a really good job at your state pageant. So the first thing is that there are some requirements for introductions. So at the state level, you get 30 seconds. You get more time at the national competition, but today I'm just going to be focusing on state since that is what's coming up. So you get 30 seconds to say your introduction. And within those 30 seconds, there are some required things that you do need to say. So you are required to say your name, your hometown, where you see yourself in the future, or something interesting about you. So it is really important that you talk about these things. They could be in any order. They don't need to be in that specific order, but they need to be said in your introduction within those 30 seconds. It is really important that you stay within those 30 seconds because the judges know that you guys only have that amount of time, and they do know to look for those specific things. So make sure that you are practicing. Personally, I like to keep my introductions to about 25 to 28 seconds. That way, you know, if something happens, you have some wiggle room and you're not having to worry about it too much. The next thing is that introductions, if you have watched National American Miss, if you've gone before, if you've watched videos on YouTube, that introductions can be very, very simple, or they can be a little more complex. The thing to know about introductions is they can be either or. There's no right way to have your introduction. I've seen girls win where they have a very simple introduction where they say what is required and they do really well. And then I've seen girls become a little more complex and do different things and do well. So it doesn't really matter which route you want to take. I will say that creativity is really awesome, and it's really cool to see girls develop a creative way to do their introductions. So I would definitely say try to do that. Also, I'm gonna take you guys through these steps on how to actually write your introduction. These are the steps that I take to write my own introductions. So the first thing that I do is I take a piece of paper and I list everything about me, things that I'm interested in, hobbies, maybe awards that I've won, clubs and organizations that I'm a part of, and I just list it all out on a piece of paper. And you girls are all so amazing, and you're doing so many things in your community and are a part of so many things that this will be very easy for you guys. So just list different things that you are a part of. You can definitely think back to a couple years of maybe something that you've done that was really something that you enjoyed and list that, or even something recent, a new hobby that you may have picked up. So just make sure that you list it all out. And then the next thing that I do is I pick 2 to 3 things on that list that I really want the judges to know the most about me. So you're going to pick from that, and that's very hard, but the reason is we only have 30 seconds, and it's okay if you're not able to talk about everything because you do have the interview competition where you can talk about those things, and that gives you something to talk about with the judges. So I want you to pick 2 or 3 things that make you stand out the most, and then that's what you're going to use as the body and the content for your introduction. It's really important that you keep in mind that when you pick those 3 things, really make them something that will help you stand out from the other contestants. So, you know, maybe you play a sport, but maybe you're on a traveling team where you got to travel to some really cool places. Then I would pick that because that's something that is really unique and different about you. So definitely do that. Some good things to also point out and to pick are things like community service and maybe awards that you have won, hobbies, interests, clubs, and organizations. I definitely say that if you have done some community service, add that in there because that's something that's really awesome, and NAM loves girls who help out in their community. The next thing is once you have your content, you want to start with something where your first sentence or your first couple of sentences in your introduction are just like, wow, like I want to know more. I want to listen to you. That is kind of the reaction that you want to get from the judges. So personally, I love quotes. That is just kind of my thing. So for a long time, probably since I was like a preteen, I've always started with some sort of quote that means something to me, that relates to the different things that I'm going to be talking about in my introduction. And I love giving a really powerful start. You want to start strong. So really do that. And then with the 2 to 3 things that you have picked for your introduction, you're going to want to kind of come up with like a theme. And it doesn't need to be like, oh, my theme is community service, I'm only going to talk about community service. Or my theme is I want to be a lawyer, so everything's going to be court references. You can definitely do that, and that's totally fine, but it doesn't need to be like themed. It just really needs to kind of flow together. So for my last two introductions that I've had with NAM, they've been kind of just flowing well with one another, and they all link together, but there's not really a theme. And as you're older, those themes, you don't see them as often as when you're like a princess and a junior preteen. So as you get older, you just have more things that, you know, may not connect in terms of, you know, a specific theme, but you can still organize it well, that it'll all flow and link well together. And with that, you want your speech to be organized. You don't want to be jumping around and going back and forth to different things. So, you know, if you're talking about school, talk about school, and talk about, you know, whatever hobbies or clubs that you're in, and then talk about your community service. You don't want to talk about, you know, your school and you being in one club and then talking about some community service that you have done in your community and then go back to school. You just want it to all flow really nicely together. And finally, of course, you want to end strong. A lot of girls end with their name or like a clever little saying at the end, or something just very powerful, very meaningful, very touching, and then they'll end with their name. You don't have to end with your name. It is super common in NAM to see that, but I have seen girls win and do really well where they actually say their name at the beginning as well. So whatever works for you, you can just kind of have an idea and then roll with what you think is best for you. There's not really a right or wrong way to do it. They're not going to mark you down if you say your name at the beginning or if you say it at the end. You just have to make sure you say everything within those 30 seconds. Talk about is the actual introduction competition. So what will happen is you will be wearing your introduction outfit, which is also the same as your interview outfit. I know that for different states, it kind of depends, but very commonly you do your introduction competition and you go straight into interview. I know that was the case for Arizona, but it just depending on your state, but you usually wear the same outfit, and I think that that's really good. I personally think that wearing the same outfit is great because then the judges will just remember you. But you will line up for your introduction competition. Will be in number order, and what will happen is the queen will be on stage in the center of the stage holding the microphone. And for what I have seen most commonly in terms of the introduction competition is there will be a queen and there will be 3 girls standing on X's, and you'll actually see the X's on the stage, and you'll stand there, and then once the one girl goes up to the queen and grabs the mic, then everybody just fills in the space. So that's kind of what they do for introduction. They'll explain this all to you in your rehearsal at your state pageant, so don't worry too much about it, but that's just kind of what I have seen most commonly, and that's definitely what you see at nationals. So when you go and you're standing and you are waiting for your turn and you are on stage, it is super important that you are standing in your pageant stance or in pretty feet. And it's really important that you are smiling that entire time. A lot of girls ask, you know, should I look at the girl who's doing her introduction or should I look out into the audience? I always do a little bit of both, but I definitely like to pay attention to the girls who are saying their introduction because I really think it's important to support one another. So personally, I'll just, you know, stand there and I will listen to what they're saying and I will definitely clap for them. That's super important as well because you would want your fellow contestants to support you as well. When you actually get up to your turn, you're going to get near the current queen. You're going to take the mic, and what I suggest doing is when you grab the mic, you're not going to start right away to do your introduction. I always like to step up a little bit in front of the queen, not like in front of her this way, but just take a step up and you are going to start your introduction. The way that you should hold your mic is like you're eating an ice cream cone. That is kind of the rule of thumb. So if this was the ball of the microphone and I'm holding the mic, it needs to be where you would eat an ice cream cone. So kind of like right underneath your chin. You do not want it to be in front of your face and you don't want to talk like this because now the judges can't see you. You don't want it to be super far down because then they can't hear you. So right here is like the perfect place to have your microphone, and make sure you relax your arm. You don't want it to be super stiff and out like this. You can just relax it and make sure that you feel comfortable when you are doing your introduction. Girls always ask, should I focus on the judges, the audience? Where do I look when I'm saying my introduction? When you're saying your introduction, you definitely want to focus on the judges because they are the ones that are giving you the score. But I also do panel up to the audience, usually right at the beginning and then at the end as well, so that I'm also addressing the audience because you are learning good public speaking skills. But since this is a pageant, of course, you definitely want to focus your attention on the judges. I have had this question a lot. A lot of girls ask, should I walk in front of the queen or behind the queen when I get ready to leave the stage? This is a really good question. So I have traveled to a bunch of different state pageants and I have heard, you know, 2 different answers. And I've heard it doesn't matter, you can walk in front or behind the queen. And then I've heard some states where they say, you know, it's nice to just respectfully walk behind the queen. So either way is fine. Personally, what I do is I just walk behind the queen, and I have, at this point, it's just like muscle memory, and I always just walk behind the queen after I'm done giving my introduction. So you could do either or. I would suggest walking behind the queen just because that's what I usually do. Next is, these are just some other random tips that I have that I think will help you and just kind of some questions that I got. So a lot of girls asked about hand movements. So can you talk with your hands? So I definitely am a person that talks with my hands. I'm sure you guys have seen that in all of my videos. But what you can do is you can use hand movements. So when you are talking, remember you have one hand on the mic, so you can't use 2 hands, but it's okay to, you know, gesture a couple of times. I know that for nationals, I actually kept my hand to my side most of the time, and I do usually suggest that, but there were a couple, there was actually one time where I did point, like, not point, but like put my hand over my chest, as in like, because I was referring to myself, and then I just put my hand back down. I always suggest just keeping your hand down for the most part. It's just super professional. It's easy. You don't want to get too carried away with using, you know, a lot of hand movements because it can become distracting. You don't want to be, you know, doing this whole big presentation with your hands because it just becomes distracting. And now as a judge, I'm looking at your hand movements rather than listening to what you are saying. The other thing is girls say, what if I get stuck? You know, what if I forget? What I always suggest is always keep going. Say you stumble over your words, it's okay to take a little pause. The judges may not even notice. They may just think, oh, it's part of her intro. Take a little couple second pause and then continue. If you can't remember what you have to say, I always say that it's best to just, you know, start to finish up. So maybe if you haven't already said your name, or even if you've said your name already, just say, my name is, and I'm from, you know, wherever. Just kind of wrap it up. That way you still stay within those 30 seconds and you still have a solid introduction. So, you know, just keep going. I think that's the biggest thing. And for a lot of girls, they do stumble their very first time. that they do their introduction, or maybe even down the road. You know, sometimes we get nervous and that's okay, and the judges know that. It's just really important to always keep going, and you want to just do your very best. And in order to do your best, the way that you can do that and avoid forgetting is practicing. Practice your introduction, and I wanted to put this video out with enough time for you guys to develop your introductions and start practicing it, so that when it is time for you to go to your state pageant, you feel ready and just feel really good and prepared so that you can do awesome. This is a really good question. A lot of girls have said my leg shake during introduction. I get so nervous. So this has happened to me so many different times. It actually happens this year at nationals, and I was giving my introduction and I was doing really fine, and all of a sudden I just kind of got like nervous, and I could definitely feel my legs shaking. My one leg was kind of trembling, and I was like thinking as I'm doing my introduction, oh my goodness, like I really hope the judges don't see this. And as I'm saying that, I'm, you know, making eye contact and talking to the judge, I could see her look at my leg, and I was like, oh, please don't look at my leg, like please look back at me. And so yeah, so my legs definitely did shake because I did get a little nervous, but that is okay. Clearly I still did fine, and it didn't affect my score. But a thing that you can do to help prevent that is having really good shoes. So, you know, kind of staying away from a super thin heel and getting a nice, you know, like chunky heel, or just something that has a good sturdy heel. That'll help. So having really good shoes, making sure that your shoes aren't too high for you, that'll help with that leg shaking. The shoes that I actually wore at nationals were like a half a size, or like a size smaller than my regular shoe size. So I did order my shoe size, but they ran small, and I did not know that, and I didn't have enough time to get you know, a new pair of shoes because I ordered them online. So I just rolled with them, and I was like, I'm only gonna wear them for intro and interview, so it'll be fine. But the heel was thinner, and I think because the shoe didn't fit me perfectly, it did kind of have an effect on my leg shaking. But honestly, from the audience and all of my sister queens said that they couldn't tell. I think that the judge could tell just because she was up a little closer, but clearly it didn't affect anything, so don't worry too much about it. I will say that it's really important to make sure that you are not fiddling with your dress or touching your dress, or, you know, shaking your hand or doing anything, because the judges will notice that and they will take it as you being nervous, and you don't want that. So just be very aware of your body when you're up there, and that, you know, you're standing up professionally. And that takes me to my next thing, posture. Super important. Standing up straight and presenting yourself on stage with confidence is all really important, and that is something that I suggest that all of you guys are practicing. So at home, you don't just want to practice your introduction and what you're saying, but you want to actually practice where you're standing up straight, and you're practicing with your microphone, and you are standing up straight. Ask your family, ask your friends, does my posture look good? That's all just things that are really important. And as you're saying your introduction and you have really great posture, it'll all just become muscle memory, so that when you actually get to your state pageant to do this competition, like it's kind of automatic and you already know what to do. The very last thing that I have is just to practice and prepare. This is one of the harder competitions because you do have to memorize a speech. Public speaking is a really big fear among a lot of people, and so this really helps to give you guys tips and gives you that chance to practice. It is not something to be scared of, because if you're practicing and you're preparing, you're gonna do well. And that is my biggest tip for honestly the entire pageant. You girls really do need to practice. You can't just get out there and expect that everything is going to go your way. You have to practice and you have to put in the work. So with introduction, get the introduction down perfectly. Make sure it's within that time limit. Time yourself. Make sure that you are good. Practice your posture. Practice everything so that when you get to the state pageant, you're prepared and you're, like I said in my last video, focusing on having fun, than trying to remember everything. That is the last thing that I had. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It was lots of fun making it, and it's really nice to just kind of reflect and to share tips that I have in order for you guys to be successful at your guys' state pageant. If you aren't already, please be sure to follow me on my social media. You can follow me on my title holder page at the NAMAA Miss, or you can follow me on my personal page at Caitlyn Kramer. Also, please be sure to subscribe so that you guys can get that notification. Also hit that notification bell, but that way you guys can get the notifications when I upload videos. I'm doing a lot on preparing for your state pageants, and I want you guys to be ready because I'm gonna see you guys at nationals come November. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.